And we are live. It's the Revved Up 906 podcast, a Detroit Pistons podcast to be exact. And I'm Hudson.
And I'm Ryan.
And before we get into episode number 21, I want to give you guys a quick reminder to like and subscribe. Revved Up 906 is always growing, and we appreciate you guys showing love to the Mothership Pod, to Revved Up recaps. We appreciate that. But also, be out on the lookout for some NBA 2K content. As this NBA season comes to an end for the Detroit Pistons, we need to be able to keep giving you guys content each and every week. And we are looking forward to expanding what we do. And we are going to be bringing you NBA 2K content, doing stuff like My GM, one-on-ones of the bad boys versus the going to work boys. So it's going to be kind of interesting what the content will look like this summer, but just be on the lookout and make sure to subscribe so you are along for the journey.
Yep.
Without further ado, let's get into episode number 21. This week, we kind of wanted to talk about Cade Cunningham because, a lot has happened, trades and injuries and guys like Eugene Amarui that have kind of become unsung heroes, and Marvin Bagley's been playing well. So there's been so much going on with the Detroit Pistons organization, and some negatives, having a losing season, only 16 wins as of right now. So a lot to take in. So we wanted to take some time just to kind of talk about Cade Cunningham and kind of be his hype man for the week and kind of get you guys excited once again for Cade Cunningham's return. To kind of get down into the knit and grit, Cade Cunningham only played 12 games this season. And that was kind of not what we kind of expected. Yeah. Coming into the season, we were like, oh, this guy, he's going to have a great sophomore year. He got snubbed out of Rookie of the Year, and now he's going to come out and show everybody here I am world, and has an injury.
Yeah.
But previously to his injury, was averaging nearly 20 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists. I mean, this guy, that stat line, maybe you want him around a little bit more 24, but it's that stat line, his points got better from his rookie year, his assists got better, his rebounds got better. We saw him get a little bit better than he was his previous season, and I was in shock and awe.
Yeah, he came in hot, but I wasn't expecting anything less. He was just doing his thing. He was finishing the season prior to that last year.
Right.
And this year, the injury that he did have was a lingering injury that resulted all the way from high school. It was one of those things where it's you don't necessarily need to get surgery on it, but it just affects you still.
Right.
Because you can feel it and everything, and it affects how you move on the court and everything. So he saw it as you know what, I want to better myself and hit my top levels and not just sit on the level that I'm currently at.
Right.
So let's get the surgery. And we're not going to be having a winning season this year anyways. We're going to be one of the worst teams in the league. We're going to be chill. We're going for another top guy to bring him in. And so he saw that, and he realized it, and he's like, you know what? Let's just get the surgery. And I don't mind that he got the surgery.
No.
I wish that he would have played more because I love Cade. But if he's going to be healthy for the long term, I'd rather have this get out of the way now than have to see it happen 2-3 years from now and have it be much worse.
Yeah, totally. And it gives time for guys like Jaden Ivey and Jalen Duren to kind of get through those growing pains of transitioning to the NBA and just getting them fueled and ready for when Cade gets back, because I have a feeling he's going to come out with some fury. I think he's just going to be so fired up. I also wanted to talk about, they have him right now listed at 220. And a couple weeks back, there was a photo on Instagram that kind of went mini viral of him standing in the practice gym with his arms just looking jacked out of his mind. So I actually can't wait for that to get like updated, because I can't imagine. I'm guessing he's like 235 now. I'm guessing he put on 10 to 15 pounds of just muscle. So that's another thing that's really good. A positive that can come out of this surgery is that during this rehabilitation period, working with physical trainers and stuff like that, getting in the weight room, it gives him time to kind of develop his body. Because that was something that, as a Pistons fan, we were a little weary about, because he was a little like, oh no, is he going to be able to compete in the paint being as lean as he was? And he was able to make it work. But now that he's putting on some weight, dude, I mean, talk about like three guys that are just jacked. Jalen Duren, Jaden Ivey, who, by the way, has got some pipes. And then Cade Cunningham going to be coming back just jacked out of his mind. It's nice to see a Pistons squad. I mean, we're used to guys, and not hating on them, but we're used to guys like Jason Maxiell and Charlie Villanueva, Jonas Drepko, these guys that like weren't the most physically gifted. You know, they looked like they just came out of the local pub, you know, and now like 10 years fast forward, you know, our guys are just physical specimens. It's just to show you how different the Pistons organization has kind of shifted their mindset. Yeah,
and you look at some other key guys and what you're talking about being piped up and everything. You got James Wiseman too. He's built. And then even Marvin Bagley in his own way. Bowie On, he looks like he did walk out of a pub. Let's be realistic here. But he can shoot. That's all that matters. That's all that matters. But we have some dogs on this team that, like, the previous couple of years, you wouldn't have even been like, oh, watch out for him. And you look at like guys like Andre Drummond. Yeah, at times you could go like, hey, watch out for him. But at the same time, you know, Andre Drummond is kind of like Muhammad Ali's saying about float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. That's Andre Drummond. And so he's not going to go out there and pummel you to death. He's not like a bad boy-esque player. I get what you're saying. But today's roster, the way it is, you have Wiseman and even, more of like Jalen Duren. That's more of like a, I'm going to kick the crap out of you from the bad boy era. And I love to see that. We got some good key guys around Cade Cunningham going forward. And you look at this year's current depth chart. Our current starters are Killian Hayes, Jaden Ivey, Bowie On when healthy, Marvin Bagley, and James Wiseman. And that's not a terrible starting lineup, but obviously it's not one of the best in the league because we lose every single game pretty much. But you see the growth between some of these individuals, like Killian and Jaden Ivey. He just dropped 32 the other night. Like, he's obviously doing something right. Bowie On's injured, of course, but that's what the season has been for us. And we know what we're going to get out of Bowie On. He's going to get buckets. Everywhere he's gone, from Indiana to Utah to now in Detroit, he's gotten buckets every single place he's gone. And then Marvin Bagley, he is doing his thing as of late, which I'm not surprised about, but that could mean a potential move this offseason, which we talked about in our last recap. And then we have James Wiseman, who post-trade for not really ever stepping foot on an NBA court is playing out of his mind. I'm not complaining about him at all. And then, like, you look at the roster and you throw in, like, Cade Cunningham in the mix. With all the growth we've had this year, we're looking pretty good. And Jaden Ivey has shown that, you know, when we saw Cade and Jaden play together early in the season, Jaden really was not a great passer, not a good complementary player. He was a guy that obviously knew how to get a bucket, but we saw him take rough shots. His shooting percentage was very low. But now in this season, I mean, he shot 9 of 19 when he scored those 32 points. And then, you know, he's showing that he can shoot good, but then also be a very solid passer. We see him each and every night, like 5 assists, 8 assists, 6 assists, 9 assists. Like, his statistics passing wise are getting better. And that's why it's exciting to know Cade's coming back, because now that Jaden Ivey's kind of figuring out, okay, I can make it happen with Cade. Now that I kind of got my passing together, that makes them look a lot more dangerous than they did previously.
kind of talking about guys that will play well with Cade, let's kind of get into current draft prospects in this upcoming draft that would complement Cade. Now, let's break it down as far as like if we get a top 3 pick and then if we get an outside the top 3 pick. So let's talk about the top 3 pick. Say we get the first overall pick.
Yep.
Who are we taking that's going to complement Cade?
Well, Brandon Miller, I will say this. This is not a knack on him because let's be realistic here. You can't pass up Wemby if you have the number 1 overall pick. You'd be insane to.
Right.
Although it could be a situation of a Darko kind of.
Never know.
You never
Overseas,
know.
You never know.
But no, Victor is obviously the clear-cut number 1 pick
right now.
But Brandon Miller has played spectacular all season long, except for the last matchup there in the tournament for him. He only had 9 points. He had like 17 shots and barely made anything, and it was just not good for him.
Right.
But I think the most complimentary player in the top 3 is Victor Wembanyama. The reason I say that is because Victor is literally Kevin Durant, just the gigantic version. And Kevin Durant is already huge himself.
Right.
And the fact that Victor can put the ball on the floor at 7'5", can defend all day, can out-rebound anyone, can just go up against top-tier talent consistently and play good basketball, that's kind of what you want. And like, Cade is more of a facilitator than Jaden Ivey, obviously. But then you throw in Victor, and then you have Jalen Duren and James Wiseman. All together, it's like, how are you supposed to stop that?
Right.
And with Brandon Miller in that lineup, you're like, oh yeah, how are we supposed to stop that still? But it's not as lethal as a Victor Wembanyama. And then you throw in Scoot Henderson if he were to be our pick, which I completely doubt just because he's a point guard.
Right.
And it's just more of like, we're very guard heavy already. And it's like, why would you spend 2 back-to-back top 3 picks, top 5 picks on shooting guards / point guards? Because unless you're the Cleveland Cavaliers, they're the only team that could really make that work. With the Colin Sexton, Darius Garland situation, they made it work. But it's just not smart because we got Cade Cunningham and then we got Jaden Ivey, guards back-to-back. There's no way Weaver goes and says, yeah, let's get Scoot Henderson. That would be 3 guards in the top 5 3 years in a row.
Yeah, the thing with Victor Wembanyama, too, is we've talked about previously Bowie On taking a lot of shots away from fellow players, guys like Jaden Ivey, so on and so forth. I don't see Victor taking away shots the way Bowie On does. I think Victor is very let the game come to him. Whatever he gets set up with is what he'll take. Where Bowie On, we see him go out of his way to get threes up, shots up. And that can be tough to play with at times. So that's why I also like Victor too, because yes, obviously the talent's undeniable, the physical traits are undeniable, but I also think he's a superstar caliber player that can let the game come to him without forcing it. And that's a beautiful thing to see.
Yeah, and I completely agree with that because this is like, there's only certain guys in NBA history where it's like, oh, it doesn't matter if he has the ball or not. He's going to impact the game hard. And it's like he can just get a board and there's his shot right there. He doesn't need the ball in his hands 24/7.
Right.
We're seeing that as the season goes on with Jaden Ivey. We saw that with Cade last year. He was still effective without the ball. And we're seeing that with Jalen Duren as an example. Like, he doesn't call for the ball a lot.
No.
But he's very efficient when he does get the ball.
Right.
Same with James Wiseman. And so you throw in a young, skilled player like Victor Wembanyama, who is it's a bold take right now, just given that we haven't seen him play in the NBA yet. But I would say he's a generational talent because the fact of how big he is and what he can do, there's nobody that's been like him yet.
Right.
And so it's like, how are you going to stop that? So that's who I would pick if we were to get a top 3 pick, which we should. But if we don't, the NBA's rigged. But
yeah, so let's talk about, so say the odds don't go in our favor. The NBA just is like, you know what, Detroit, screw you, you're not getting this, and we fall outside the top 3 picks. Who are we looking at? Because we're probably seeing Scoot Henderson taken, Victor Wembanyama taken, probably Brandon Miller. Maybe there's a sneaky guy in there that takes the 3rd or 2nd spot. But who do you see the Pistons taking that will kind of complement Cade?
So obviously, I wouldn't draft a guard, which we've noted that with Scoot.
Right.
I'm not drafting a big because we're already very, very big heavy. And so obviously it's a wing. And there's some key guys that I think could be good picks. Now, they're not top 3 for a reason because Brandon Miller, Scoot Henderson, and Victor Wembanyama are just legit.
Right.
But you have Amen Thompson. He is playing for Overtime Elite right now. You have Jairus Walker out of Houston, Nick Smith Jr. out of Arkansas, Grady Dick out of Kansas. Yeah, that's his name. Cam Whitmore out of Villanova. Ausar Thompson, who is actually Amen Thompson's twin brother, out of Overtime Elite also. Keontae George, he is listed as a guard, but he really is a wing. He's from Baylor. And then, of course, Jet Howard from Michigan. Jet Howard, he's not going to get picked that high. I don't see a possibility of that happening. But I do see a possibility of if we were to land out of in the top 5 range, I could see Weaver going like, maybe a team wants to move up to get a certain guy like a Amen Thompson. We'd be cool if they were to take him and we move back, get a couple more assets out of it. I'd be fine with that just because this draft is very wing heavy. We haven't seen that in past drafts and we need a wing. So I'd be fine with that. But the one guy that out of all of them that I listed that is like, whoa, are the twins. And Amen and Ausar. Because granted, okay, Overtime Elite, let's be realistic here. That's not anything impressive. And not saying that it's not loaded with talent because it is, but it's not college basketball.
D1.
Which is one of the hardest levels of basketball to score on. And then it's not like you're overseas or anything. It's just Overtime Elite. It's nothing special. But in their stats, Amen is averaging 16.5 points per game, 6 rebounds per game, 6 assists per game, 3 steals per game, and like a block a game. Like, that's pretty solid. His brother, Ausar, is averaging pretty much the same, if not better, in rebounds per game with like 7, and then assists per game with 7. So it's like they're pretty identical stat line wise, and they weigh about the same. If Ausar is just 5 pounds heavier, but out of their stat lines alone and what they've done, I could see them sneaking in there. But I do want to address one person in particular, which is Jairus Walker and Cam Whitmore. Jairus Walker is 6'8", 240, which is huge, given his size. He's 19 years old. With Houston, which Houston is one of the best teams in college basketball right now, even though they got eliminated very early, and they are not in the Final Four. But he is averaging this season 11 points per game, 7 rebounds per game, 2 assists per game, and shooting 46% from the field, which is very high and efficient. And the reason why you could say, like, oh, his stats are very low. Like, you would expect a top-tier talented guy to be 20-plus points per game. College basketball does not work like that. It's very hard to score in college basketball, but then not only that, but Houston is very loaded. And then Cam Whitmore from Villanova. We love Villanova products because look at Sadiq Bey as an example. He was a good player for us. Cam Whitmore, 6'7", 232. He's only 18 years old, which I like that. He's averaging 13 points per game, 6 rebounds per game, an assist per game, and he's shooting 48%. Like, out of those 4 guys that I listed off, I wouldn't complain about any of them, really.
So say, we pick up a Jairus Walker or a Cam Whitmore, who are solid shooters, consistent. And we pick them up in the offseason, and Bowie On's still kind of sitting on the bench. Not sitting on the bench, but he's kind of sitting there getting through his PT, getting healthy this summer. Do you see that kind of swaying Troy Weaver to move Bowie On? Like, where does that leave Bowie On if we're going high with a small forward?
So if we land in the below top 3, I would say Bowie On is the starter.
Okay.
And the reason for that is because he's a solid vet, and Weaver's going to want to see what he's like with Cade and Ivy.
Mm-hmm.
And then on top of that, Wemby and Miller are more polished than any of these other wing kind of players.
Right.
And then Bowie On also deserves to start, obviously, because he's a good vet. This season alone, he's been fantastic for us.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but this also rises his value for a trade.
Right.
So he starts out the season hot, and we have one of those guys off the bench coming in. They're playing their tails off. They're playing really good.
Right.
Bowie On, bye-bye.
Right.
Like, there's no way you wouldn't make that move.
Yeah.
Because if you can clear cap space, because Bowie On's contract is actually pretty fat, you clear cap space, you could potentially get some young talent back or some picks back, and it just opens up the whole roster. It allows you to get more cap space for next year's free agency, which is supposed to be better than this year's even. And so it just opens up more possibilities. Now, I wouldn't complain with Bowie On still sticking with the team and coming off the bench.
Right.
But I just think that he opens up a lot of doors for our team going forward.
Yeah, and you hate to have a guy with that big of a contract coming off the bench.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of like, I wish we were using him a little bit more. But, I kind of like Jairus Walker a little bit more because, we've talked a lot of this season about big personalities on the Pistons and how we want some guys that just talk a lot, communicate a lot, that on the airplane are playing games and like messing with everybody, pranking people. And I think Jairus Walker is a little bit more like that compared to a Cam Whitmore. He just kind of seems like a performer.
Yep.
He loves you can just tell he communicates a lot, and I love that for the Pistons. And I think I could see him. He just seems like he would mix well with Cade and Ivy, and that's really the biggest thing. If you think you can mix well with Jalen, Jaden, and Cade, that's the biggest thing. We should be worrying about those 3 guys the most because those guys are for sure the centerpiece. And I could see a Jairus Walker, coming out of the introductions, walking on the court for jump ball. I could see him pairing up with those guys.
If we don't get a top pick, obviously.
Right, Brandon Miller,
because I'd rather have Brandon Miller or Wemby than Jairus Walker, just given how much the talent level is just there.
Yeah.
But Jairus Walker could still be a stud in this league.
Yeah.
And it's not like he's going to be a stud right away. It's going to take him time. He's going to have some pains here and there to be legit. But that goes into like the effect of Cade Cunningham.
Right.
Because last season, you look at Sadiq Bey, because this is the overall arching like wing player that we're looking for. So Sadiq Bey last year with Cade, 16 points per game, 6 rebounds per game, 3 assists per game, and shot 40%. Without Cade, obviously this year he sucked. It's just honest. It's the full opinion right there, going straight forward. He did not play great this year. Without Cade, he averaged 14 points per game, 4 rebounds per game, an assist per game, and shot 40%. He shot just as good as he did previously last year, but his numbers weren't the same because Cade elevated him.
Yeah, he did.
And without Cade this year, Jaden Ivey can only do so much. He's not Cade Cunningham.
Yeah.
He's not a true facilitator. And so, Sadiq Bey took a step back. But I think anybody coming in needs to be able to play and stay up to a high standard, even if Cade isn't healthy.
Right, and I think part of the downfall with Sadiq, too, is also Bowie On.
Yeah.
I think Bowie On took a lot of the shots that he otherwise would have had. But, I always could tell that when Cade and Sadiq were on the floor, Sadiq was always kind of keeping close to Cade, kind of always making sure he was in passing lanes. So, I completely agree. I think Cade Cunningham was a real big reason why Sadiq made as many threes as he did and why he's so highly regarded in Pistons record books in 3-point wise is because of Cade Cunningham. And it didn't fail. As soon as Cade got hurt, City kind of went to the wayside. And it's unfortunate because he's a Troy Weaver product, so obviously we love him. But, it's just he just wasn't up to par this season, and it was still good enough to get moved. So that's what ended up happening. I kind of want to talk about this. Cade Cunningham coming off of injury, he's going to have plenty of time to rehabilitate. He's had a long time already, and then he's going to have a whole summer. Should we be worried about his physical ability when he gets back? Is that something that, we should have in the back of our mind? Ooh, what if he gets back and he's not the same?
From my understanding, he is actually practicing with the team. Mm-hmm. He's not going 100%, but there are drills that they're playing him in there with, which is good for us, because if you're rehabbing all this time, you're not going to just walk around on it and do that. You got to be able to put pressure on it and go hard. And so from my understanding is he is practicing completely with the team. Mm-hmm. He's just not playing this year. And it's just more of a slowly going in back to taking the right strides to getting back to 100%.
Right.
And he's just building it up, still shooting, participating with the team, because he's a big participation guy. He loves connecting with everybody. Yeah. And he needs to connect with James Wiseman as an example, because they have never stepped foot on the court together in game yet.
Yeah.
So that's a key one. And then also any player we get in this upcoming draft, Cade needs to be healthy in order to create chemistry there. Yep. And so I think Cade's going to be fine. He did gain some weight, but let's be realistic here, that's all muscle.
Right.
And that's going to help him long term, because you look at Kevin Durant as an example, who, it's a weird comparison, but people oftentimes compare what Cade can do is similar to what Kevin Durant can do. Now, their builds aren't the same. Let's be realistic there.
Right.
But they just compare the playmaking ability. And I think the weight puts Cade up a whole nother level than KD, just because KD doesn't have that weight. He's never had that weight. Right. And look at how many injuries he's had from his size. And so Cade bulking up is going to allow him to get stronger, get faster, do everything better than what KD has done given his size. And just adding that much muscle, it could be a negative in the sense that it could strain them a little bit, but I think this is you look at Kobe. Kobe comes in, he's a little scrawny. Mm-hmm. He's doing his thing. You're like, oh, he's legit. But then he put on all that weight, and then he took a whole nother jump. You look at MJ playing against the Pistons originally. He was like, oh, that kid's good, but he's nothing special. And then he gets beaten up time and time again from our bad boys. Mm-hmm. And then he's like, you know what? I need to change up my habits. Let's get stronger. Right. He bulks up, and then he's a whole different player.
Right.
So I think that's what's going to happen with Cade. Cade was good. He is good. Mm-hmm. But adding that muscle on there, it's going to elevate his game to a whole nother level.
Yeah, we kind of referenced it before. James Wiseman and Cade Cunningham. I think that duo is going to be so crucial. And I think the reason we made that move for James Wiseman is I think Troy Weaver, Dwayne Casey kind of see a spark there of what it could be. Yeah. And we've seen James Wiseman struggle playing next to a guy like Marvin Bagley because he's not getting enough looks. He won't need to worry about that when Cade Cunningham is guiding our offense. Right now, Killian does have his times where he's leading our offense, but a lot of times right now it's kind of just a free-for-all. Yeah. It's just kind of whatever happens. But when Cade Cunningham's on the floor, everything's moving with a purpose, and that's why, yes, James Wiseman's playing good. I'm happy with the way he's playing right now, but I think it's only going to step it up a notch when Cade gets back, because James Wiseman is a pick-and-roll guy. Okay, well, Cade Cunningham can do whatever you need him to do.
Literally.
He is a Swiss Army knife when it comes to offensive ability. If you need him to pass, he can go and get you an assist. If you need a bucket, we saw him in his rookie year be one of the clutchest shooters in the NBA. As a rookie, he was top 7 in clutch points per game. So Cade Cunningham is a guy that James Wiseman should be drooling to get on the court with, because I say it a lot, but James Wiseman, you can tell, is frustrated visibly at times. So I'm looking, and James will kind of be running down the court with his head down, and then Bowie On won't give him a look, and he's kind of like roll his eyes as he goes down the court. I don't think any of that's going to happen when Cade's on the floor.
No.
And a lot of those issues that we're seeing in the gameplay is just because our quarterback isn't there, and it's just kind of a free-for-all.
Yeah, but also, like, who has James Wiseman played with? You look back at Golden State, he played with 3 Hall of Famers and Klay Thompson, Steph Curry, and Draymond Green.
Right.
And so by just the 3 of them, he's not going to get the ball a whole lot. And then you add in Andrew Wiggins and Jordan Poole. There's no way he's touching the ball.
Yeah.
He's good, but with those guys, there's no way he touches the ball. Even Kevon Looney is a solid player. Looney's going to get the ball more than James Wiseman would have in that offense. So it's like you look at his situation now, because he's gotten used to not really getting a whole lot of looks, where he sees the Pistons as like, holy crap, I finally have an opportunity to actually get shots up and affect the game.
Right.
But then you have Bowie on ball hogging, and it's like, great, here we are again. This is what I left Golden State because of that, and now I'm stuck in the same situation.
Yeah.
And so you can see and understand why he would be upset with Bowie on in that situation, because Bowie on every single place Bowie on has gone to, Bowie on hasn't been the guy.
Right.
He's doing what James Wiseman wants for himself.
Right.
Because it's like, you look at Utah, he was not the guy. Donovan Mitchell was the guy.
Yep.
And if it wasn't Donovan Mitchell, it was Rudy Gobert.
Right.
And so, and if it wasn't Rudy Gobert, Jordan Clarkson. If it wasn't Jordan Clarkson, Mike Conley, etc. They have guys over there that Bowie On wasn't always going to be the guy. He had to take the clutch shots, but even his teammate, one of his favorite teammates, Joe Ingles, took more shots than he did.
Yeah.
And so then you look at his situation now, it's like he's giddy because he's also like James Wiseman in the sense of, I finally have an opportunity to play my style of basketball and get my shots. And so they're kind of bouncing heads a little bit because of that.
This is a question I'm excited to ask because it's either going to be depressing or awesome. I don't know. But we'll see how this goes. But I wanted to ask what our record would be if we had Cade this season. Like right now we're at like 16 and 48 or something like that. You might want to fact check me. I need to be fact checked.
I'll fact check.
But there's been plenty of games this year, I know for a fact, that have come down to the wire and we weren't able to hit the big shot and we weren't able to get those clutch points. And we saw right away Cade's rookie year help out in those moments, in such crucial moments. And I think a lot of those games that we lost this season could have went another way if we had him.
Easily.
So what's our current record right now?
We are currently 16-59.
16-59, yeah.
That is significantly worse than last year.
So let's just say this.
Because last year with Cade, we were 23-59.
Right.
So we would need to win out right now to get the same record as last year.
Which isn't going to happen.
No, it's not going to happen.
But I would say, let's say, I mean, it's hard to say because I keep saying say a lot. So what happens is in the past, say Jaden Ivey, Cade, they pull it together, they build this great chemistry, and we win 10 more games than we have, or we win 15 more games. I don't see that necessarily happening, but it could have happened, we will never know.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say we're at 16 wins right now. Our team is better overall roster-wise than it was last year. We've talked about that a lot. I would go with maybe 28 wins.
I'd probably go 32.
Okay, I like that.
Just because we've seen what Cade can do. And with Cade last year, we had 23 wins. And so you add in Jaden Ivey, you add in Jalen Duren, you add in James Wiseman, you add in Bowie On, you add in Alec Burks. There's so many players you can add in on this.
I know.
That it's like, with Cade, this team has the caliber to be like a 10th seed in the East as a high. Obviously, we are still missing our wing, but
yeah.
Let's say we do get Wemby. If we're 10th right now, in my opinion, with our roster as it is, with Wemby, there's no reason why we shouldn't be at least 5th in the East.
Right. Oh, I like it. So let's talk about this too. Alec Burks and Hamidou Diallo. I mean, I don't even think Cade played a minute with Alec Burks because he was coming off an injury or whatever. But Hamidou Diallo made great steps in an amazing direction. He averaged nearly 15 points this year that we hadn't seen him do in the past. And it wasn't at all with Cade Cunningham.
Yeah.
So now you add Cade Cunningham, Alec Burks, Hamidou Diallo are healthy. You add 2 scorers like that. There's so much in question right now because when Cade comes back, all these guys that Cade hasn't had much time with are going to be here, and guys like Hamidou and Alec Burks found their way this season and got better and showed that they can be major bucket getters off the bench. It's like, dude, guys, next year might be a big season for the Detroit Pistons.
And then you look at Omarui coming in.
Yeah.
Like, he's a solid player. We keep saying he's Draymond Green-esque, and there's a reason for that because he just works his tail off. He looks exactly like Draymond Green in terms of build. But also, like, imagine his energy coming out there, lighting a spark, and then Cade getting subbed in, then boom, you just get hit.
It's electric.
Yeah, you're just going to get just pummeled to death. It's exciting to see because, like, just in the starting lineup for next year, potentially with Victor, you have Cade at the 1, Jaden Ivey at the 2, Victor at the 3, James Wiseman at the 4, and then Jalen Duren at the 5. But then you have a bench of Marvin Bagley, potentially, Isaiah Stewart, Killian Hayes, Corey Joseph, Hami, Isaiah Livers, Alec Burks, Ronnie Magruder potentially still.
Right.
But, like, we have some guys that took a huge step up this season without Cade. Who's to say they won't take an even bigger jump up next season when he's back?
Right. It's kind of similar to, like, the New Orleans Pelicans. You know, Zion dealing with a lot of injuries early in his career, but while all of that was happening, they were upgrading their team, getting guys like CJ McCollum and adding to that roster. And then Zion gets back and then they find their stride. Yeah. So it's really interesting to see if it's going to be a similar path as the New Orleans Pelicans, as a team like the Sacramento Kings. We saw them get a lot of good guys in the draft, and it was a slow burn, but now they're finding their rhythm and becoming a pretty big powerhouse in the West. So it'll be interesting to see what path the Pistons take, if it's going to be something like we've seen before, or if it's going to be a little bit non-traditional. Let's put it that way. It'll be kind of interesting. Real quick, before we wrap up today's episode, I wanted to ask, how many AllStar appearances do you think Cade Cunningham is going to have in, let's say, a 20-year career?
Oof, okay. Well, I'm not going to say as many as LeBron because that's impossible right now, given that he did not play this year. So he'd have to play more than LeBron to get that. But in comparison, I'd probably go... It can't be as many as Kobe because that won't work.
It was a bunch. I think he reached 20.
I would say I can see the comparison between him and Kobe in the All-Star appearances just because of who they are as leaders. But I'd probably go, like, how many did Isaiah have?
I'm not sure. I think it was like 8 or 9. Maybe more, I guess. But I could see, to be honest,
he was a 12-time All-Star.
12-time. I could
see Cade getting 12.
Yeah, I was going to say 11. So yeah, I'm right in that same ballpark. I think more than half of his career, he'll be in an All-Star.
Yeah, and especially if we take that next step up, like I'm talking about, and we're like at the 5th seed in the East. There's no way Cade isn't getting All-Star after All-Star after All-Star.
Right.
Especially when you have Victor Wembanyama, who I honestly think he might be a first-time All-Star his rookie year.
Dude, I could see 3 All-Stars from the Detroit Pistons next year. Jalen Duren, Victor Wembanyama, and Cade Cunningham. I don't think Jaden is quite there yet, but I think when you give Jalen Duren a guy like Cade, I think he's going to go hard, and I think he's going to have a big second year.
Even after next year, I would go like Cade, Jaden, Victor, James Wiseman, Jalen Duren. our entire starting lineup, baby.
Yeah. Kind of like the Atlanta Hawks when they had their big year in like 2012 or something, where they had
the
like
going to work Pistons.
Yep. They had four guys in one All-Star appearance. I think it was like 2005 or something like that. But big things are to come for the Detroit Pistons. We wanted to give y'all a quick reminder that Cade Cunningham is a Detroit Piston, man. That's so sick. And we wanted to make sure that you guys were just kind of in the loop about that we have a guy like Cade Cunningham and what the team will look like when he returns, because right now there's so much in question. I can't wait for a year from now when we're heading into the playoffs, getting ready for an Eastern Conference championship, baby. I love it.
Oh, yeah.
That will do it for episode number 21. I want to give you guys a quick reminder to go follow Grind Clothing Co. on Instagram. We have officially partnered up with them for our second merch drop. So you can find the links to that merch in the description below and also in our YouTube bio. So go rep Revved Up 906 during your workout, during going and getting groceries, doing homework, whatever you're doing, rep Revved Up 906. We will see you guys in the next episode. Peace.